everybody. Ramadan Mubarak to you all. So I would like to welcome everybody to our last session of the webinar series for the month of Ramadan. Thank you for being with us and joining us. Let me say a few words about our programs during the month of Ramadan before I hand over the floor to Professor Abdul Ghafar Ismail. As the Istanbul University Center for Islamic Economics and Finance, İSİFAM, we organized the webinar series in Turkish, Arabic, and English on philanthropy, charity, and zakat during the month of Ramadan. So we try to bring together through our webinar series a platform for discussion on issues that pertain to all of us. So our fourth and last participant of English talk series is Professor Abdul Ghafar Ismail, who has contributed extensively to the field of Islamic economics. So he is professor of Islamic financial economics at Faculty of Islamic Economics and Muamalat, University Sains Islam Malaysia, member of YAPIM Board of Trustee and chairperson, Organization of Islamic Economic Studies and Thought. He got his PhD from University of Southampton, England. His experience includes head of research division, Islamic Research and Training Institute of Islamic Development Bank, professor of Islamic Financial Economics, University Kebangsaan, Malaysia, and University Islam Sultan Sharif Ali, bank supervision advisor of the International Monetary Fund of Djibouti, M-Bank Group resident fellow for Perdana Leadership Foundation, consultant for Ministry of National Development Planning, Indonesia, and Sharia committee member of Citibank Malaysia. He has published extensively in several referred journals. His papers have also been presented in many international and local conferences. His research interests include learning process and growth theory, intertemporal allocation of resources, earning management, capital adequacy, standard for Islamic financial institutions, risk management, and institutional economics. His recent books are Money, Islamic Banking and Real Economy, Al-Rahn and Islamic Pawnbroking, Economic Capital and Risk Management in Islamic Banking, and Policy Discussion on Maqasid al-Sharia for Social Economic Development. So I would like to turn over the floor to Professor Abdul Ghafar Ismail. Welcome, Professor Ismail.
Welcome. Thank you very much, Dr. Nagmatin. First of all, I would like to thank to Istanbul University for inviting me to join this talk, İSİFAM Ramadan talk. Inshallah, I will be the last person to talk about this subject with other colleagues been presented their papers earlier. So today is my turn to talk about a topic on that I already prepared the slide. So I show you the slide that I'm going to present. So about 19 slides altogether. So the papers that I want to present today is about the philanthropy in Islam, what matters to fiscal federalism. So actually, this paper will be, the discussion will be divided into basically into two main categories. One is two main parts. One is philanthropy, and another one is the fiscal federalism or federalism system, where the philanthropy had been practiced in a country or in a nation that practiced a federalism system. And also we will touch on philanthropy as a fiscal policy tools that can be used to influence the socio-economic development. I start with a few words on this philanthropy. We look at the Islamic economy, and also especially the visible presence of Islam actually is intended to meet all the demand of, or we call it Shumul al-Hayah. But this is in our daily life, that Islam can be practiced in our daily life. Okay, But in the economics activities, Islam also set rules about relationship between religion and economics. If you look at from the conventional perspective, the conventional look at the relationship between religion and also economics. They discuss it from the perspective of the secularization hypothesis and also the market hypothesis. But here in how Islam try to link between the religion and economy by looking at how the rules can be embedded in our constitution, and then not only embedded in our constitution, but also how can we put these rules into our action, especially in the context of philanthropy action. If you look at from the early days, philanthropy has become the basic Islamic economy, where philanthropy, which means that love of people, has been successfully practiced by the Prophet ﷺ and also the Sahaba. And not only they practice the Prophet and also the companion, but also what are the motivation for the the followers during that time? What are the motivation for them to give something that can benefit the ummah? And finally, that motivation, especially during that time, was done to achieve the glory of Islam and also to achieve the social justice and remove the economic oppression. So my paper in this tonight, or in Malaysia, maybe the evening in Istanbul, the important message that we want to discuss in this paper is actually philanthropy is an old concept. But if you look at in the Journal of Economic Classification, they classify it under D64. What does it mean, D64? Meaning that if you discuss that under the topic of welfare economics, you have the D61, 62, 63, 64. So meaning that it's only appeared recently in a Journal of Economic Classification. So meaning this subject, philanthropy subject, is an old concept in Islam, but only in economics, in the modern economic, they discuss it under welfare economics under the classification of D64. Okay? But if we look at the scholarly publication in leading English language political science journal, shows that philanthropy is a distinct concept, meaning that not many discuss on the subject. Okay? And the current studies that very much are influenced by the Christian or Keynesian tradition. None has included the Islamic tradition in explaining the instrument and also the principle. This is the reason why, in this case, we will look at the constitution in different countries where they adopt the Keynesian tradition or they adopt the Christian tradition, and none has included the Islamic tradition in Islam in explaining the instrument and also the principle of philanthropy. So the challenge is for us is to incorporate philanthropy as a fiscal policy in federal system. So this is the challenge for us. How can we incorporate that have been discussed in the previous talks by the Professor Anas, Professor Asad Zaman, and also Dr. Salman, talk about the philanthropy. So now we want to incorporate, how can we incorporate philanthropy as a fiscal policy in a federal system, where a country follow a federal system, not a unitary system. Maybe some country, they follow the unitary system. Okay. Let's we look at an insight into the studies of philanthropy. Okay. If you look at the historical, maybe we need to learn about the history of our Islamic economics. Okay. For example, in the development process of Nabawi Mosque, Umar al-Khattab, when give the land in Khaybar, Abdul Rahman bin Auf sold his land 40,000 dinar, then distribute it between the people and give 50,000 dinar for Allah and give another 1,000 horse for the Badrin. Okay. If you look at that from that perspective, meaning that development of a mosque process was contributed by the people during that time through the philanthropy. Umar Khattab also gave endowment land to in Khaybar, and also Abdurrahman outsold his land for 2,000 dinar. Okay, so philanthropy has become the centerpiece of development of the Ummah during the earlier times during the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So what can we learn from that is in the early development of Islam, philanthropy is very common among Muslims. Okay, so this is from the studies that that I gather that the development in the early development of Islam, philanthropy is very common among Muslims. So what is actually philanthropy? If you look at from Greek, the word derived from phil, meaning that loving, or you can see also the words philo, anthropos, mankind. So you can see the anthropo. And etymology is defined as kindness, humility, benevolent, love to mankind from God, man, or things. Okay, so this is the basic definition of, maybe I've been discussed before this, but what is philanthropy? But we look at, the scholars that discuss on this subject, among the scholars that discuss on this subject, subject of philanthropy is Patton in 1988, where he shows that philanthropy is a form to show the collective activity taken by individual through organization or institution, giving services and association to help others in need as expression of love. So you look at from the word, is the collective activities. It can be done through individual or organization or institution by giving services and also helping others who are in need. So it is to show that to express our loving, we love to express that we love them. We love the people. We want to give them. But also, we want to help them. Okay. So this is the basic definition of philanthropy from the recent scholars. Okay. So what we can see that from the Islamic perspective, in Islamic philosophical basis, the obligation of Allah to achieve social justice, it creates unity between love of the human, moral motivation, and the obligation of Allah. So meaning that the meaning of philanthropy is different from the Islamic perspective, where this is our obligation, the obligation from the human being to Allah, and also the love of the between the human being, and also motivated by the moral motivation. Okay. So if we look at the Islamic philanthropy, what are the instruments? Okay, what are these Islamic philanthropy instruments? Philanthropy instrument actually can be interchangeably with the word sadaqah. Okay, so meaning that similar to sadaqah, then sadaqah can be divided into two. One is obligatory and also another one is voluntary. Okay, so we look at different types of sadaqah, the voluntary, wajibah or nafilah. We can have a different category of obligation or sadaqah wajibah or sadaqah nafilah. We look at the example of sadaqah wajibah, for example, zakah, fidyah, kafara, kharaj, ushur, riba, and jizyah. And sadaqah nafilah, for example, lillah is for God, and waqaf, okay, aqiqah, and also other than the sadaqah wajibah. Okay. What are the motives? If you look at the motive, for example, zakat al-fitrah that we pay during the Ramadan, okay, obligation to purify our souls. This is the motive, okay, and zakat to purify our wealth. Waqaf, external goods for Allah, meaning that we release our ownership to Allah. We own that goods, or we own that property, and then we transfer the ownership to Allah, meaning that the motive is eternal goods for Allah. Okay, Lillah, use out of good for Allah. Nazar is keeping promise, because we are then our nazar, we keep our promise to Allah. And fidyah is substitute for our worship, and kafarah is getting Allah forgiveness. Fidyah is paying to Allah, and aqiqah is thanks for the bird, and kharash is a baitul mal or citizen obligatory. Ushur is the baitul mal, also is a part of the baitul mal property, which is belong to the citizen, that the obligation for the citizen to pay. Riba is also one of the baitul mal property. This is also an obligation for citizen, and jizya, where they obtain the baitul mal, obtain that from the non-Muslim as a citizen obligation. Okay. Okay. Now, what is the effect of philanthropy? First is we look at social effect. What is the effect? We are expecting that this, because this is obligation from the human being as a, to show that we love Allah. So what is the effect of that philanthropy? One is a social effect because it creates social justice function. And second is a spiritual effect that strengthens our obedience to Allah, or strengthen obedient values to Allah. Meaning that if you look at from the sociological perspective, there is name of satisfaction, meaning that when we endow, for example, wakaf, for example, is a name of satisfaction where we give something for others. Okay, but from the psychological perspective, we want to give happiness in this life and also to benefit to others. Meaning that if we want to give sadaqah to others, meaning that we want to be happy in this life, and then not only we want to be happy, but also we want to benefit that sadaqah to other people. Okay, so logically, if you look at from the Sufism, because in economics, you can also discuss the economy from the Sufism perspective. Allah not reducing what he has, whereas Allah give all his creation, and all that does not make him lost. Meaning that if you give it to sadaqah to others, meaning that the benefit is on us, it won't benefit Allah, because Allah doesn't reduce the wealth of Allah, and also Allah will somehow will give us more because of the ni'mah that we can gain from that from that sadaqah. Okay? How can we apply that? If you look at the principle, what are the principles in applying that? The philanthropy is concerned about the no excess or deficiency famine. Even in the case of Ibn Umar, Khalifah Umar Khattab is very fair in distributing property to the community. There is no strong get a lot of small part or got a big part, all share equally. And so this is the, I mean, from the principle, how the Khalifa or the Khalif applied the principle of philanthropy during that time. Okay. And the Khalifah Usman, for example, he was developed a natural resources. He made the water drain, the construction of street, and the establishment of police organization to secure the trade route. So this is done through the, through the philanthropy. And also Khalifah Ali, radiallahu anh, he made Baitul Mal both at central and local level, has been going well since then. So if you look at from the during the during this Khalifah Sayyidina Ali, Baitul Mal was made as a centrally organized or locally organized. So this is similar to what is currently what we have. Is we have a unitary system or we have a federal system. Okay, and also Umar Abdul, he regulated that Kharaj was a joint property of Muslim and joint possession of the community, and Jizah was paid as land tax while Kharaj was tax for security. So this is how the previous rulers apply the concept or the principle of philanthropy in managing a country. Okay, so that's why we want to look at from the perspective of a country or perspective of a nation. Okay. We look at from the Constitutional Economic Discourse. So as I mentioned earlier that we want to discuss this topic under two. One is philanthropy and another one is from the constitutional economic perspective. Okay, if we look at constitutional economic perspective, simply we say that how do the country apply the economic rules in their activities or in managing their economy. Okay, so how the country apply the rules that they apply the economic rule in managing their country. Okay, so this is the basics definition of constitutional rules. But we want to highlight what is actually the subject of constitutional rule. Maybe in Istanbul University, maybe you have one subject on this topic on the constitutional economics. Okay, we look at this constitutional economics offer three elements. What are the elements that have been discussed in constitutional economics? One is the constitutional political economy, meaning that this is the aspect of the governance of how do the economy be governed by the constitution. Okay, and also look at constitutional economic also offer a discussion on the analysis of different voting right regime, meaning that if let's say we vote one party, and then what is the regime of that party? I mean, what are the policy that they want to introduce in relation to the economics activities? If let's say we vote other party, what are their policy in relation to economic activities? Okay, and not only that, the institutional economic that discussed on constitutional political economy and also analysis of different voting right regime, but also to understand on the human and also the property right, meaning that what is our right, what is our right in holding a property, or what is our right in on the property that we own. For example, we have the shirkah, for example, or we have the mudarabah. What is our right on that property under the mudarabah contract? What is our right under the musyarakah contract, for example? Okay, so if let's say from the partnership contract, they buy a property, what is our right on that property? Because why we need to understand that? Because sometimes because of the failure of the government and also the failure of the market, so we need to understand that the human have their right on their property, and also the human also they have a right on their own. Okay, so this is why the constitutional economics are very relevant in this case. Okay, we look at I don't want to discuss on this on the constitutional political economy. I already touched that, but what I want to discuss is the constitutional rules also discuss on the fiscal, monetary, and also regulatory powers of the government. Okay, maybe some of you, maybe you can look at your constitution and what are been discussed or what has been provided in or what has been written in your constitution on this matter, on the fiscal, monetary, and also regulatory powers of the government. Because in the constitution they put powers, the powers that put the constraint on the government activities. For example, if you look at the constitution, in our constitution, even in maybe in Turkey or in Indonesia or Brunei or Singapore or in Malaysia, for example, or Pakistan or India, if you look at our constitution, they put the constraint on the government. If let's say the government want to spend, how much they can spend that money. So they can spend the money based on the amount of money they have in their consolidated fund. If let's say if the revenue is less than the expenditure, so they can borrow or not. So the constitution provides the powers to the government of the day to borrow from internal or external sources. That's why if you look at, I mean, from my research in several countries shows that the constitutional rules in different countries, they follow the Keynesian views. Why I say so? Because of if let's say the government, the revenue is less than the expenditure, according to the Keynesian views, government can borrow. Meaning that if the government want to have a fiscal an expansionary or fiscal policy, then the government have to borrow if revenue is less than the expenditure. So it is allowed in our constitution. Okay, and not only that the constitution follow the Keynesian views, but also in certain countries like in Germany, constitution is largely based upon the reflection of the Fiscal School of Law and Economics, meaning that law and economics are important subject where this school, Fiscal School, they can influence the rules that can be embedded in the constitution. Okay, so we see that the views, the economics views have been taken care of in the drafting our constitution. Now we look at the subject on the constitution and the governance, because we look at the political system in the country, which I mean, certain countries follow a different system of government. But in Malaysia, for example, there are 3 layers of government. We have federal, we have state, and also we have the local government. Okay, so this is what we call it as a federal system, of they follow the federalism. Okay, and other countries like Australia, Brazil, Canada, and India, they follow the federalism. Okay, or federal system. Countries like Turkey, Indonesia, Kyrgyzstan, South Korea, okay, so they follow the unitary system. Even maybe if you can correct me, Dr. Nikmatin, that at one time Turkey also discussed on the option to go to federal system. It was a few years back that they discussed on this issue, but they keep on. I mean, they use. Now they use the unitary system. So if you look at the structure of the federalism or the unitary system, we have the constitutional structure lead to differences in division of power. Power they have been given to federal, power given to the state, and power given to the local government. This is what we call it because we have a different level of government or different layers of government. So we have the intergovernmental relations. Another issue is, can we change our constitution? This is under this. If let's say, for example, now we want to implement the Islamic economic, we don't believe anymore the Keynesian views. We want to change our constitution. Can we change that? So you can answer that question. Okay. So ask the legislator to discuss that in your upper house or lower house to discuss on whether we can change that our constitution. Okay. Now we look at provision related to public finance minister. Constitution determine the extent of a nation revenue raising authority. What type of revenue, how are they to be collected and distributed? Okay. Meaning that the Constitution gives you the power to on these issues. What type of revenue that you can collect and what type of revenue that you can distribute. So this is the issues of how do you manage your public finance. Okay. But in this country, Malaysia, Singapore, and Brunei, maybe because of we inherited our law from the British. Okay. So these 3 different have was colonized by the British. Okay. So constitutional rules lead to the introduction of Islamic religious revenue as the sources of government revenue. Okay. So normally, when we talk about the government revenue, we only focus on the tax, non-tax, or non-tax receipt, or also other revenues. Okay. But in the case of Malaysia, in the case of Singapore, in the case of Brunei, okay, in our constitution, we introduce the Islamic religious revenue as the sources of government revenue. You can look at this in Part 7, Financial Provision, Article 97 up to 112 in the case of Malaysia or our federal constitution, where Islamic religious revenues as the tool for Islamic economics, okay, as a tool for socio-economic development. So what is actually Islamic religious revenue? So we look at this. What is the definition of Islamic religious revenue? Okay. So if you look at, since we follow the federal system, we have the federal, that is as shown by Article 97A. We have the federal government, and not 97A, 97B, and also 97C. In Article 97, okay, federal government, you collect your revenue and money, such as income tax, stamp duty, export duty, and then put it in your account, what you call it as a federal consolidated fund. So this revenue belong to the federal. And we look at from the state, because we follow the federal system, we have the state revenue, state consolidated fund, that money or revenue that received from land tax or revenue from other mineral resources. Okay, so land tax, revenue from mineral resources, so that we can, that revenue belong to the state government. And under the revenue, what we call it, we discussed before this, is the Islamic religious revenue or Islamic religious fund. Okay, they should put it together as an Islamic religious fund. Okay, zakat, fitrah, baitul mal, or similar Islamic religious revenue. See, meaning that in federal system, we have three different accounts. One is federal account, which belong to the federal government, state account, which is belong to the state government, and state have another account, they call it as the Islamic religious revenue. Okay. Okay. So what can we learn from this provision? I think we learned a lot from the Majlis Al-Ahkam, from during the Osmania. You have this Majlis Al-Ahkam that we translated the Majlis Al-Ahkam into our state law. Then from what we learned from our previous, from the history, we adopted the Qanun Malaka, Undang-Undang Tubuh Negeri Johor, or Johor State Government law, and the Federal Constitution. All these are very much related to the establishment of, or to the introduction of Federal Constitution in Malaysia, and also not only in Malaysia, but also in Singapore and also in Brunei. Okay, so if you look at this provision related to the economic matters in our constitution, I embedded that what we can learn from there, that in Islam, the revenues that we receive during the early day of Islam is derived from the Al-Quran and also derived from the Al-Hadith. So meaning that the discipline of tafsir, which is the explanation of the divine book of Al-Quran, and also discussion of economic issues in the discipline of fiqh or Islamic economic jurisprudence or Islamic economic law, has been embedded in the federal, in the constitution of Malaysia, Brunei, and also Singapore, if I can name these three countries. So I don't have the figures in other countries, but I did a study in Indonesia, but I could not find that provision in the constitution of Indonesia. Okay, so from there, what can we learn is Islamic religious revenue is actually as part of the public finance matters. Okay, because constitution can expand the sources of revenue for economic purposes, And also the ahkam or Quranic rule has been translated into our constitution. So this is what we can learn from the constitution in Malaysia, Singapore, and Brunei. Okay, because in the federal constitution 97 in bracket 3, zakat, fitrah, baitul mal, or similar Islamic religious revenue shall be paid into a separate fund and shall not be paid out except under the authority of state law or federal law. So meaning that here, not only Islam become an official religion in Malaysia and also in Brunei, but Islamic religious revenues as part of public finance matter has been embedded in our constitution. Okay, so meaning that Islamic economic model for economic development of Ummah is already embedded in the constitution. So what is the relationship between Islamic religious revenue and philanthropy? So actually, Islamic religious revenues are similar to philanthropy. It is my answer to that. Whether there is a difference between philanthropy and Islamic religious revenue, they are the same. Okay, so meaning that philanthropy is embedded in the federal constitution of Malaysia, Brunei, and Singapore. Okay, so what is the impact of social fiscal? Well, because this revenue, you can influence to the socioeconomics. Okay, so meaning that you can use the fiscal policy instrument, which is basically is a philanthropy instrument, to influence the socioeconomic development. So if let's say in this case, if I can call it the effect of COVID-19, the effect will be on the socioeconomic activities, or we call it COVID-19 will create another crisis. That crisis, we can call it as a socioeconomic crisis. Okay, so how can we use the Islamic fiscal policy or Islamic religious revenue or Islamic philanthropy to affect the socioeconomic development? So this is how is the importance of Islamic religious revenue or Islamic or philanthropy on socioeconomic development. Okay, because this instrument, maybe a lot of study has been done on the effect of zakat, on the income, on the education, on the economic condition of the ummah, or the quality of life, or the effect of zakat on the distribution of wealth. A lot of study has been done on that, on the effect of the zakat on the distribution of wealth, also the effect of wakaf on the development, economic development. So all these are, you can see that a lot of study has been done. So here, my discussion is to stress or to make an foundation, or to discuss the foundation on how the fiscal policy from the Islamic perspective can affect on the socioeconomic development. So here, if you look at, this is, I agree with some scholars, then be discussed around in the WhatsApp group about the circular economy, been proposed by Prof.Abdul, where how can we link that circular economy to link between the creator, planet, and people should all become the agenda of socioeconomic development. Because if you look at here, go back to our basic definition of philanthropy, where the basic definition of philanthropy is the obligation towards Allah, and meaning that we try to create between the people and also the creator, Allah, and also how can we serve or can preserve the planet to make our condition or the quality of life is there, and also to distribute our wealth for the benefit of the people. So this is the agenda of the socioeconomic development through the philanthropy, and that can be applied through the fiscal policy instrument. So with that, I think I have to stop there. If you want to read more about that paper, you can retrieve that paper from this website, istech.net. Okay, so you can download from there. Different paper, but I gather all together in one discussion tonight, inshallah. Thank you very much, Dr. Nekmatin.
Thank you very much, Professor Abdul Ghafar, for your talk, for your inspiring talk. We really learned a lot of things from your talk. Now it is the Q&A session. We have some questions from our audience to you. The first question, I will also text it to you.
Okay.
There is a big gap between the modern financial system and the Islamic past. How can we benefit from and update the early application of philanthropical policies in the agricultural societies? I think the question is mainly about Islamic past, which is based on agricultural culture and modern societies.
Yeah, modern society. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. How can? What is the key point there? What is the key point that they want to add? Yeah.
This is the question sent to me. So how can, it seems that the question is mainly about the financial system that we have today. And the Islamic past is based on agriculture. So how can we, transfer this philanthropical worldview or policies in our modern societies?
Oh, okay. I think I can answer it from the broad perspective and also from a narrow perspective. Okay. Why? Because of many keywords that can grab from that question. One is on the financial system, and then can the philanthropy can be used to influence the agriculture sectors, right? Okay. If you look at one is I think I need to discuss that first on the effect on the agriculture sector. Agriculture sector is very important for us because one of the sources of the revenue for our philanthropy, we call it mandatory obligation. If you produce, let's say we produce rice or probably we produce wheat, so meaning that certain percentage, 2.5%, if we get a free water, or we have to pay 10% of that the yield, so that we have to pay the zakat on that. So meaning that if let's say we have more area or more production in the agriculture sectors, meaning that we can also receive more revenue from that. So not only this revenue from the agriculture sector is related to the yield, but also if let's say the agriculture related product, maybe we can sell or we can do buying and selling from there, meaning that we can pay our zakat based on the business entity that do the buying and selling of agriculture product. So not only that we pay the zakat from the agriculture product, but also we do business on related to agriculture product that we need also to pay. We are obliged to pay the zakat. So meaning that the agribusiness, agri-based business, and also the agriculture product also are very influential in supporting the revenue from or the revenue for philanthropy or revenue for a state of revenue for the government. Okay? But if we look at from the financial perspective, how can we relate that financial perspective? I can say that maybe Dr. Nekmatin, maybe also the person who asked this question, if you have the time to look into our constitution, I can conclude that the constitution don't give us or don't give not even a single word mentioned that we need to establish the financial system. Actually, the financial system is to facilitate the smooth functioning of the government, meaning that as part of the payment system, then we need to establish the financial system. If you look at in our constitution, the constitution does not mention about the establishment of the financial system, or even the establishment of the central bank, or the establishment of the banking system. They don't mention that in our constitution. It is only the effect of that constitution that we need to establish to facilitate the payment system. Okay, that is the reason why, if you look at from the even from the Islamic perspective, yeah, the importance of philanthropy, or the importance of the revenue from the Islamic perspective, that is very much element that can influence the socio-economic development of the community or the society.
Okay, thank you very much. The second question was asked by
from where it is, Dr. Martin?
Excuse me?
Huh?
The second question. Can you hear me?
From where? From where? From the student or from?
From our colleagues, I don't know. From
Okay.
they sent the question to me.
Okay, right.
And so the second question is, as Muslims, so I will also send it to you. As Muslims, can we benefit or learn from the Western philanthropic activities or institutions? If yes, how can we transfer them? If not, why?
I think some of the values that can be transferred to our values. For example, I read a lot of articles written by many scholars in the journal that the motive of giving is due to different reasons. For example, because of maybe during the childhood you don't feel that something that maybe you like it very much, but you don't have money to buy that goods or that facilities for yourself. So therefore, because of maybe during your childhood you cannot buy that, and then it's timely for you to contribute to the community that by having that material or that goods, for example, that can benefit the child during our period. I think that is very encouraging factors that encourage or motivate us to donate, for example, or to give something for the benefit of the people. And if you look at from the perspective of OECD, for example, they only report the overseas development assistance from country to country, meaning that if, let's say, now we are facing the humanitarian crisis in Syria, for example, in Yemen, so the money come from the developed countries under the OECD. So they come in from the country to the other country, meaning that from developed country to the recipient country. But whereas in our perspective, we look at our NGO or maybe our organization or maybe our association, they also contributed the money or the assistance to this conflict country, and then we don't report it in any official data that have been published in any by any country or any organization like OECD. So from there, I think also this is what we can adopt, that the values that have been practiced in the West, where they have a formal organization like OECD, where they collect the money from the different countries, and then you transfer that into a country who suffer the conflict, okay? And then you can show that this is the benefit of the humanitarian assistance to the recipient countries. Whereas we in Muslim countries, normally we contribute directly from the organization or from the association, and then we don't gather all the data that it can show to the world that, oh, this is the amount of money or financial assistance that been contributed to that recipient countries to benefit the country in those conflict countries.
Okay. Another question is actually related to this one, and I'll send it to you as well. As you know, Professor Esad Zaman has presented charity in Islam as tezkiye of the giver. But in the West, it is for benefit of society, economy. What do you think about such view?
Okay, if you look at from what have been presented just now, one is, we call it this mandatory, and another one is voluntary. So voluntary meaning that it is to show that our obedience to the Allah rules, and also we've been encouraged. Voluntary is encouraged by the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So meaning that the motivation is come from because of we want to obey the Allah rules. One, okay, or we want because of encouraged, because it is encouraged by Islam that we need to give part of our wealth to the needy or to the poor, for example. So meaning that the motivation is for us because of two. One is because the obligation, okay, obligation that we have been asked to do that, and another one is because of our willingness to help, right? Our willingness to help others who suffer, for example, because of they have a low income, because they have the low nutrition, for example. So we need to help them by giving part of our wealth for the benefit of others. So for me, I agree what have been said by Prof. Asad Zaman, that it is from the recipient perspective, also should need to link it to the need of the recipient. Because if we look at from the list of asnaf or the recipient of zakat, so been said in the Quran that it have to be given to this asnaf. We are obliged to follow the rules, but because they are as a mandatory. But at the same time, we also asked to do that voluntarily for the benefit of the other people, not only for the other people, but also the other humankind. Okay, maybe for you want to feed the lion in the zoo, for example. So, or maybe want to feed other humankind that they want to who need that something that we can benefit from that.
Okay. Another question is what I understand from your presentation, there is a strong relationship between governments and philanthropy.
Yeah.
How can philanthropy be applied in decentralized political systems?
Okay. Decentralized political system like in Turkey.
Yes.
You follow the centralized,
yes, right.
Yeah, you follow this centralized.
Right. Yeah.
I think in my presentation, I show it to you that because of we follow the federal system, meaning that we have 3 layers of governments, okay, or 3 levels of government: federal, state, and also local. But the important thing is not these 3 layers, because these 3 layers only you follow the system, because the system that you follow is you follow the system. If you follow a centralized system, it's also is applicable in this perspective. Why? Because of, if let's say this view, we move from the one currently where we have is the basically we follow the Keynesian, or we adopt the Keynesian view, where if you want to spend, okay, we must get the revenue? From where we want to get the revenue? This is the question that we have to ask. Based on the Keynesian views, they say that you can tax or non-tax. Okay, tax or non-tax or other types of revenues. Okay, this is from the Keynesian views. But if you look at, let's say in this case, if you look at from the Abu Ubaid, for example, discuss about the Islamic religious revenues, okay, or been said and have been mentioned in the Quran or Hadith that Islamic revenues come from these sources, okay, from zakat, fitrah, waqaf, sadaqah, and also other Islamic religious revenues that I mentioned in that paper. Okay, so meaning that the government also either centralized or decentralized, if you can replace that views, I mean that we follow the Keynesian views, and we replace with this view where the revenue can also be generated from philanthropy. So meaning that the philanthropy can also be applied in different government system. Either you follow the federalism or you follow the unitary system.
Okay. Another question is, as you know, Ottoman Empire had a very big Waqf experience and
Yes.
fiscal policy.
Yeah.
Do you think if the Muslim economists benefit from the Ottoman experience? If not, what are the reasons? What are the reasons? Yes.
If let's say we take one example, Waqf as one of the revenues, okay, and I'm sure that if you learn that in the public finance, where we have this, call it the consolidated fund in different countries, either you follow the Westminster system or you follow the US system, they have this consolidated fund. From where this consolidated fund, we already discussed that from tax, non-tax, and also from that. If you look at this revenue, the revenue is the amount that you spend for that particular year. Okay, you spend how much that you collect from that particular year, and then you spend for that particular year. If let's say you have a surplus, so that surplus should go to become a new new amount for the beginning of that next year. Okay, so if you look at from the Waqf perspective, Waqf meaning that you should maintain the perpetuity, okay, the perpetuity of that property. So what does it mean in this context? If let's say we have the Waqf, okay, as part of our revenue, meaning that we have already the asset in a government account. So like in Turkey, I know that you have a lot of Waqf asset, okay, not only the Turkey, but also under the Osmania Empire in the Balkan state, a lot of Waqf property. But how can you, I mean, in this case, is to calculate this or to incorporate this or to value this Waqf property and then put it in your government account. And then this asset will generate the income. So we can only use the income that can be generated from the Waqf. So meaning that the values of the asset is still there. We can only utilize the benefit or the manfaat from the asset. So meaning that every year, the government can expand the size of the government by having this Waqf, because you maintain the asset, the values of the asset, but you only utilize the manfaat or the benefit of the Waqf for that particular year. So meaning over time, the budget of the government can be sustained. This is the issues of the sustainability of the government revenues or government expenditure. How can we sustain this government revenue through this philanthropy instrument?
Okay, thank you very much. I think this is the last question.
Oh, this is the last.
Yes.
Okay.
We have the last question. No, there's another question, the last one. This COVID-19 issue was an important means to present Islamic philanthropy to the whole world, but we were not ready to present Islamic worldview. What do you think about the obstacles of Muslim failures of presenting Islamic philanthropy to the world? I think that's the question.
Okay. I think because we are very much clouded by the conventional views on this when we discuss about the economic crisis, right? Because the economic crisis due to the financial crisis, economic crisis because of the commodity price, okay? Whereas we learn from the Al-Quran that the economic crisis can be was due to several reasons, right? If you look at the economic crisis during what? During the Prophet Joseph, okay? And then the economic crisis during the Prophet Noah, okay? Where the Prophet Noah built the ship and then bring everything inside there, and then Allah send the disasters to that country, okay? So because of what? Because if you look at in the Quran, that the crisis was due to the disobedience of the people. Right. Now we have to look back that what is actually the reason of this COVID. The reason why. We need to learn from the Quran that many crises have been mentioned in the Quran due to disobedience of the people. So now we have to look back on our time that COVID is due to what? Occurred due to what? So, but then we need also to discuss what is the effect of this COVID. What is policy prescription that we can propose to overcome, as I mentioned earlier, that COVID will produce an socio-economic crisis. Four elements will be affected due to the COVID. One is on the health, second on income, education, and also the occupation. These four socio-economic indicators of socio-economic that will be affected. So now how can we use the philanthropy to overcome these four variables that will be affected by the COVID-19? So this is challenge for us is if we can use this fiscal policy or Islamic religious revenue or philanthropy to overcome this problem, this socio-economic crisis, by looking at how can we influence these four variables by using or by utilizing the philanthropy or Islamic religious revenue. Hey, Martin, I cannot hear you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Thank you very much. So
Welcome.
I would like to take this opportunity to thank you on behalf of the whole group and the Center for Islamic Economics at Istanbul University for your inspiring speech you gave to us today. Do you have anything to say at last words?
Thank you for giving me this opportunity and sharing my my research that been done for many years on the subject. Hope that will benefit the listeners on our colleague around the world. So maybe if you want to contact me, you can contact me to discuss more about the subject. And if you want to ask, also you can contact me.
Okay. Thank you, Professor Abdul Ghafar Ismail.
Thank
Again,
you,
thank you. Ramadan Kareem and Eid Mubarak to you and all the audience. Hope to meet you all again in our seminars after the Eid, inshallah.
Inshallah.